150 days before discharge. Video confession of Private Vladislav Chelach. Family and colleagues tell life stories of huntsman and retired officer Ruslan Kim, who died in the massacre at the Arkhangelsk outpost. Cops prefer blondes. Celebrity turned opposition diva Ksenia Sobchak finds herself in a predicament. On the roof of your house. Officials in Zhanaozen are taking down rooftop satellite dishes that receive TV broadcasts with supposedly negative information about the country. Hello, I am Asalbek Abdulov and you are watching Vlast KZ on K+, where we review all the trends, highlights and personalities of this past week. Last week, the staff of the National Security Committee arrested a well-known Kazakh theater director Vlast Atabayev and civic activist Janbolat Mamay. The men are charged with inciting social hatred during the strike of oil workers in the Mangistau region. Atabayev and Mamay refused to voluntarily come for questioning in Zhanaozen in protest against a court decision in the case of oil workers. Subpoenas or phone calls will not make me voluntarily come to you. The NSC can only take me to its office with force or change the restraint order to arrest. These were Vlast Atabayev's words, which eventually came true. What does it say? On June 14th, 2012, at 10 a.m. in Zhanaozen City Police Department. I know who wrote that. What should I write and where? Do you agree to go? No, I don't. Then just write below that you refuse to arrive to the location on the indicated date. What date is it today? What time is it?
16:35.
Can you introduce yourself, please? You'll find out later. Now I'm receiving subpoenas while I am here at 4:30 p.m. and they want me to be in Zhanaozen at 10 a.m. tomorrow. I have no money for the air travel there. I can't take part in the trial without a lawyer, and they won't pay for it either. Just saying, come on over here. That won't work. I will simply not go there. So it won't happen unless they will take me there by force. They believe I committed serious crimes against peace and humanity. These were their actual words, and they issued a 2-month arrest order. I recently talked to my lawyer, and apparently the trial has already taken place, while my lawyer had no information about it, and neither did I. Therefore, I believe they've already delivered a judgment in absentia. Supporters of Vlast Atabayev and Janbolat Mamay marched to the building of the Almaty NSC detention center with a poster saying, "The trial of detainees is the trial against culture and future of the nation."
Janbolat Mamay'ı sottau, olacak sottau. Vlast Atabayev sottau, önerdi sottau. Vlast Atabayev sottau, önerdi sottau.
Prior to the march, a press conference was held during which civic activists announced about the creation of the public committee Arash in support of Vlast Atabayev, Janbolat Mamay, the leader of the opposition party Alga Vladimir Kozlov, opposition politician Serik Sapargali, and other persecuted oppositionists. Respected public figure Tuligen Zhukeyev was selected as head of the committee. I believe the absurdity of this accusation is obvious for many of us and for me personally. There is no doubt that this is not just the stretching of facts. This is clearly a fraudulent obtainment of judgment. The day before his arrest, Vlast Atabayev became the head of a public committee monitoring the investigation of tragic events at the Arkhangelsk border outpost. Last week, investigators released the confession of Vladislav Chelach and also supplied state-run newspapers with case details needed to fill the enormous holes in the official theories of the tragedy.
This is the room of my brother Ruslan. This is his last picture. 47-year-old Ruslan Kim lived in this room since he was little. Nothing was changed here after his funeral. Ruslan was old-fashioned. He used to read historical novels and listen to vinyl records. He mostly had foreign vinyls. This year seemed to be exceptionally successful. At first, Ruslan won the trip to Arab Emirates in the lottery and went abroad for the first time in his life. He got a new job in the spring and planned to buy a house. It seemed that life has just begun for a 47-year-old military retiree. He was building a career, yet the years passed by, and then he was very picky with women. They were always either too fat or too skinny, or they had bad smoking habits. He just couldn't find one. He was still hoping that once he's retired, he will find someone. He said he still looked young. His younger brother Timur shows to the journalist the apple trees which were planted by Ruslan. These are the last ones he bought and planted. Ruslan wasn't really into gardening due to severe allergies. The job of a huntsman in the mountains was perfect for him. Ruslan no longer sneezed and was able to breathe normally there. This is a corner of the house where security guard Ruslan Kim was shot dead. Sergei Pichorkin, the director of a hunting farm Tastau, is Ruslan's neighbor. Lately, this wasn't easy for him to meet with the huntsman's family. He offered Ruslan to work as a guard in the hunting lodges in the quietest place. At least, that's what it used to be. From the start, Pichorkin didn't believe that the murders at the outpost were committed by smugglers or drug dealers. During the winter, mountain passes are blocked with snow. They are blocked even now. It's possible to pass it in theory, but personally I think it's very hard. We're always somewhere patrolling the territory, catching wolves, etc. If there are any traces, we would have seen it. Sergei Pichorkin is one of the few who believes in the official lead. This week, with unheard of stir among the public, the Prosecutor General's office took an unprecedented step. Contrary to the interest of the investigation, parts of the video confession of a 19-year-old border guard Vladislav Chelach were shown to the population. Then I used an assault rifle to shoot him with a burst fire. I ran into the bedroom, where only soldiers already began to wake up from the noise. I started shooting everyone who was lying in beds, everyone in the room. After that, Vladislav Chelach said he killed the commanding officer by shooting him through the door. Then he took a few things, put the bodies of the soldiers on the beds and set the building on fire. Finally, he went to a guard shack to get rid of the witness, Ruslan Kim. To the surprise of security officers, all these details and the obviously edited video with second long cuts did not dispel doubts about the credibility of the official lead. Even Yerlan Karin, the chief ideologist of the ruling party Nuratan, advised the law enforcement to consider the issue of public trust. Meanwhile, the civil activists announced the establishment of a public fund to defend Chelach. We are overly concerned by the contradictory information released by the authorities. Therefore, we decided to establish a public monitoring committee for the investigation in order to prevent fraud and not to allow the sole survivor to become a scapegoat. Chelach's family have stirred the pot as well. After visiting Vladislav, his grandfather Vladimir first said his grandson denied the guilt and later claimed the media misunderstood his statement. This is perhaps the most heartbreaking part of the police footage. Despite mother's attempts to reason with her son, Vladislav stands his ground. I did it. No, I know you didn't do it. Later, Svetlana Vashchenko told reporters that her son managed to whisper in her ear that he really didn't do it. Statement of Chelach's mother raised even more doubts on whether the 19-year-old soldier is guilty. In the most wild of fantasies, I can't imagine 15 armed men being caught by surprise and then massacred. Meanwhile, many experts are puzzled with a quite reasonable question. How was it possible that almost all soldiers were inside when a third of them were supposed to patrol the premise? Thus, according to the official lead of the investigation, the border guards were grossly violating military regulations. It's a difficult situation at any angle. I'm truly concerned, as I served in the military for 25 years myself. My question is, how do they protect our borders? Apparently not good enough. This outpost incident has proved it. Don't be fooled. It's not only this particular outpost. The rest of the checkpoints all over the country are just the same. When he left the room, I took an assault rifle, switched off the safety pin and shot him when he entered the room. The death of the guard Ruslan Kim is one of the mysteries of the Arkan tragedy. According to the official line, his death was caused by gunshot wounds in the back. Part of his face was barely recognizable. Then I asked them what was on his chest, and that was a gunshot wound. Another one on his leg. There was also a bruise. He either had it before or after he fell. This is how I identified his body. Journalist Gennady Benditsky managed to publish his version of what happened before the official lead was even released, but which was still very similar. Per his version, Ruslan Kim was practically the main person involved in this case. Benditsky stated that the huntsman was found wearing women's panties, and this was one of the key details leading to far-reaching conclusions. However, Kim's family angrily rejected speculations. This is impossible. He never had women's clothes. He lived with us from the day he was born. As far back as I can remember, he never had anything odd about him. On the birthday of Ruslan Kim, his family is going to put a new plate at his grave. The old inscription turned out to be useless, stating date of death as May 28, 2012. Yet Ruslan's relatives still don't know the exact date, as they haven't received a death certificate yet. Ruslan Kim's family does not believe Vladislav Chelikh is guilty of the crime. Meanwhile, the Supreme Court has already announced that the border guard trial will be held openly. I believe this is going to be an open court trial unless there are state secrets or other cases defined in the law to be reviewed in a closed judicial session. The court will be held in the region of the incident. In the meantime, already more than 4,000 people signed internet petition in defense of Private Chelikh.
Next on Vlast KZ. Cops prefer blondes. Celebrity turned opposition diva Ksenia Sobchak finds herself in a predicament. On the roof of your house. Officials in Zhanaozen are taking down rooftop satellite dishes that receive TV broadcasts with supposedly negative information about the country.
Vlast
KZ will return with more in a few minutes.
Главные события в Казахстане. Достоверные факты. Эксклюзивные комментарии. Читайте в Казахстане информационно-аналитический портал «Республика». Чтобы обойти блокировки, воспользуйтесь доменом respublicas.info. Вы окажетесь на так называемом прокси-портале. Специально разработанные канадскими специалистами по интернет-технологиям, прокси-порталы помогают пользователям получать информацию в тех странах, где блокируют интернет-ресурсы. В Китае, Иране, в Казахстане. Вы принимаете условия использования системы и попадаете на страницу информационно-аналитического портала «Республика». Материалы интернет-портала также доступны пользователям всемирной сети Facebook. facebook.com/respublica.kaz. Если вы хотите поделиться информацией, вам есть что рассказать, звоните в редакцию «Республики». Наши телефоны в Казахстане +7 727 273 92 95, в Москве +7 495 621 87 03.
Новости Казахстана на казахском языке смотрите в 21:00 и далее каждый нечетный час. Новости Казахстана на русском языке в 22:00 и далее каждый четный час. Новости Казахстана на английском языке смотрите в 16:30, 17:30, 18:30 и 19:30 со вторника по субботу. Время Астаны. Изготовление и размещение рекламы на канале Кплюс.
Жанузенский суд продлил...
The Zhanaozen court extended the arrest of the Alga party leader Vladimir Kozlov until July 23rd. The court saw no need to inform his lawyer Alexei Plugov about its decision. The defense attorney assumes that prosecutors' old arguments about incomplete investigations of the case were the ground for the extension. According to Plugov, the extension did not surprise him since no investigative procedures were conducted in the case of Vladimir Kozlov from the start. He is not the only one who was in custody on charges of inciting social hatred, and there are other people involved in the case. Perhaps the authorities are taking investigative actions against these people, assumes the defense attorney. The change of restraint from cognizance not to leave to arrests of Bolat Tatabayev and Jean-Bolat Mamai means both are now actively involved in actual investigation. Thus, the trial over insiders of social hatred and their relationship with the opponents of the head of state will be the key court trial for the authorities. Visits of Kazakhstan dissenters to their Moscow colleagues are turning into a tradition. This time, the March of Millions, which was held on the Day of Russia on June 12th, served as the occasion for the visit. The rally was preceded with apartment searches of dissenters' leaders.
According to official data, the second March of Millions in Moscow gathered about 20,000 people. The opposition claims 100,000 of dissenters ended the streets on June 12th. An impartial method of counting the number of participants has yet to be developed. Look how many people are at the rallies. Who wants petty wagon tickets? If they start executing people like they do in Kazakhstan, we would probably be scared. Since the dissenters' campaign evolved in Moscow, 9 large-scale rallies were held in the capital so far. However, the dialogue with the authorities hasn't been established. Instead, in May, the newly elected President Putin signed a law that increased fines for participation in unsanctioned rallies up to $10,000. All of his electronic equipment, computers, phones, and even outdated beepers were seized by the police. How do I feel? I feel great. I was pleased to hear that the entire investigation unit will join my political party when I establish one. Russian TV celebrity turned politician Ksenia Sobchak made a comment linking the searches to political reprisal. This was just a matter of humiliation. A woman was following me everywhere. I couldn't even take a shower. The sole purpose of it all was to belittle human dignity, and it's very typical for Russia. They didn't even allow me to get dressed properly. Upon a violent clash with police, many experts predicted the radicalization of protests. However, in spite of sticks and stones, the government attempts to intimidate the opposition. The March of Millions on June 12 went in a very peaceful and cheerful manner. Kazakh political expert Viktor Kovtunovsky agrees with the Russian counterparts. It became embarrassing to support the authorities lately. Look what happened when prominent Russian actress Chulpan Khamatova showed support to Putin. They called her a hostage in the arms of terrorists. That exactly proves the enormous change that took place in the public minds. This will only end with major political changes, and whether it will be peaceful or violent is a different subject. One thing is clear, this escalating tension in the society is not going anywhere unless this energy is released. Before the beginning of the rally on Sakharov Avenue, Bolat Abilov, the leader of Azad opposition party, also admitted that he arrived to Moscow to receive the energy boost. The multi-million Moscow is the center not only for Russia, but also for the progressive part of society in all CIS territories. It's got large potential and much energy to gather people. The media has its impact as well. Therefore, Russian opposition is able to endure the fight, whereas opposition in Kazakhstan is not. From the stage on Sakharov Avenue, Abilov spoke on Zhanaozen shooting and mentioned the reprisals in Kazakhstan. A crowd of thousands responded with a loud roar of sympathy. That's exactly what the Kazakh oppositionists couldn't find in Kazakhstan for many years, the reciprocity. Of course, I know about the rallies in Moscow. In your opinion, such protests are simply impossible in Kazakhstan because the opposition level is completely different, just like the protesting attitude itself. Plus, the cultures are very different too. I'm not sure about rallies here. God forbid for such protests to happen in Kazakhstan. I'm content with what we have now. If those dissenters would start gathering people, I'd refuse to participate. I haven't heard anything about rallies in Moscow. We'd probably get arrested. It's better to keep our mouths shut. Just think about it. How could someone fraudulently win elections? I believe even if the election fraud took place, people won't be able to change anything by protesting. Instead, they only might get arrested. Political expert Kovtunovsky says that citizens of Kazakhstan require more stability compared to neighboring Russia, and there are particular reasons for that. We have much higher demands for stability and conservatism. It is supported by two major ethnic groups in Kazakhstan. Russian population needs stability as they believe that nationalists could come into power as a result of political changes, whereas the Kazakh population fears that political changes will lead to prevalence of breakaway trends. Under conditions of political freedom, it's quite possible that certain regions would demand more autonomy. According to Kovtunovsky, these moods could easily change, just as quickly as during the 5 years post-Soviet Union. Meanwhile, the few dissenters in Kazakhstan are subjected to arrests and society keeps quiet about it. Stage director Bulat Atabayev and youth activist Janbolat Mamay have been arrested and placed in the NSC temporary detention facility for 2 months. However, Almaty residents remained largely indifferent about the fact. I've heard about rallies in Moscow, but I didn't think it's possible here in Kazakhstan. We're not likely to have it as our country is free and peaceful. So, what would it take? I believe we will not allow for this to happen.
In conclusion, a story from Zhanaozen where the authorities are actively taking down satellite dishes carrying K+. According to advocates of freedom of speech and information, the development is similar to the installation of an iron curtain that is about to cover Kazakhstan entirely.
Shamshirak Nepes's TV set, the main source of information in the house, just went quiet. 1 week earlier, Shamshirak's husband, Baurjan, was convicted to 3 years in prison for his involvement in the Zhanaozen events. Shamshirak had no one to leave her 4 children with, so she didn't attend the hearings and followed the news on K+. The woman had to borrow money just to install the satellite dish. My satellite dish carried K+. I bought it very recently to watch the proceedings in Aktau because other channels either don't broadcast them or do it improperly. However, the signal disappeared unexpectedly. Shamshirak found out her satellite was dismantled. Local condominium reps explained her that the dismantling was organized by the Zhanaozen town administration. Where is my dish now? I was told people from the town administration took it. Everyone's dishes were taken, only state-run Aktau TV were left. If they're taking down everything, why aren't they leaving Aktau on the roofs? The move to dismantle Zhanaozen residents' satellite dishes was explained by Mayor Serek Trumov as an attempt to improve the town's outer appearance. Incidentally, this is being done without warning the residents. Along with replanting and repaving roads, we dismantle satellite dishes. This is done at the consent of residents. The only reason we do this is city beautification. We're not against K+. Every citizen has the right to choose what they watch. If citizens demand their property back, we're ready to compromise. With talks of what and where to watch were started by Senator Tuligen Muhamedjanov 2 years ago, naming K+ a negative source of information about the country. Do you know what channel they show in hotel rooms abroad? K+, which carries completely different information. It is unclear who created this channel, but it carries completely negative, not positive coverage of all the activities in our country. The senator demanded the Communications and Information Minister Askar Jumagaliyev to take measures against channels like K+. The official prepared a response right away. At present, the ministry is drafting a bill on broadcasting which will regulate the activities of local and foreign media. It will contain rules of how they will follow local legislation. We have no regulations for foreign mass media at the moment. Tamara Kaleva, the president of the Freedom of Speech Protection Fund, Adilsos, couldn't force her way inside the working group, and the law on broadcasting came into effect this January. Kaleva says the dismantling of satellite dishes in Zhanaozen is a shadow of the Iron Curtain covering Kazakhstan. By order of local authorities, local executive officers have the right to establish locations of satellite dishes in the interest of beautification. This is a very cunning and crafty norm. I said earlier that they will take down satellite dishes under this ridiculous excuse. Apparently we have no other problems left with beautification, cleanness or transportation, and satellite dishes are our authorities' main headache. In the meantime, a recently created state satellite network, KplusTV, is actively introduced in Zhanaozen. In some respect, this network provides a legalized standard for a move towards digital broadcasting. It can also be said that it carries a list of channels recommended by the Ministry of Information. The basic free package offers 20 local channels, including the state-run Khabar, KTK, and Madaniyet, along with 5 radio stations. For a fee of $35 per month, the package can be expanded to 73 channels with mainly sports, children, and entertainment programming. As a comparison to the basic packs of popular Russian satellite TV provider kplus offers 43 channels at $3 per month. The package also leaves space for regional TV stations, but the head of Shymkent Otorar TV, Valentina Kulikova, doubts a channel will make it to the list. There is a concern that we will be pushed aside because we didn't make it into the package. Who will put us there? Who needs us? The state? No, we are needed by our viewers, while the government doesn't need us with its mouthpiece policy. Of course, we are looking for ways to stay afloat in the digital realm. Otorar TV turns 20 this year, and in order to be included in the second package, it needs to replace equipment, sell broadcast tower and transmitter, and rebuild its entire programming schedule. The law is seemingly aimed at protecting Kazakh media from stronger outside competition, although in practice, it's the other way around. In the assessment of human rights activist Evgeny Zhovtis, the law on broadcasting also violates citizens' constitutional right to free access to information. In Ashgabat, satellite dishes were taken down first on central streets, then in micro-districts under the guise of city beautification and the unification of the building's facades. It was obviously related to the limit of information in Turkmenistan, but it is an entirely closed country and it would be undesirable to go down the same road as them. Methods of ideological filtering of information have a long history in the post-Soviet countries. Every radio set in the USSR was registered at the KGB, and a typewriter could only be bought by submitting passport data. These and other restrictions can be seen in Andrei Sakharov's museum in Moscow. In reality, the Soviet system was built on jamming specific radio stations. This technique was well developed by the 1950s, and special systems were set up around big cities, highly important regions and the Baltic states. These systems jammed the airwaves that broadcast foreign stations whose programming contained politically harmful and dangerous content as deemed by Soviet authorities. The Nepes family in Zhanaozen isn't the only one left without a satellite dish. They also disappeared from the roofs of buildings lining central highways, along which rare visiting senior officials are escorted. They're taking down the ones that stand along the main street. Don't know about the others. They took down dishes from several nearby buildings. I don't know about the others. Yes, they are being taken down, although they did promise to install them back on the roof. That's what the people who came from the office told us. Representatives of Kastele Radio declined to comment prior to the official launch of digital TV, which, as a happy coincidence, will be held with the participation of the head of state on July 6.
You were watching Vlast KZ on K+ channel. Trends, highlights and personalities of the past week. Goodbye.